Good morning. Episode 44, Morning Buzz with Energy Guy. I'm Tom Moore, and I work for Farmers Electric Cooperative. This is episode 44 in our first, approaching our first year of being back on after a 5-year hiatus from a radio program we did for 5 years. So we had about 250 episodes on the radio, and then we took 5 years off, or I did, and started our podcast about several months ago. But we've only missed a few weeks, and I am bound and determined to not miss any more, to the best of my ability anyway. So here we are, episode 44, and it's flown by, folks. It really has. And they say when you're having fun, time flies. But I guess SpaceX stock went public yesterday, opening at $135 a share. At the close, the stock was at $161.11. I'd say that skyrocketed. Pun intended. 19.3% increase for just today. So not bad, not bad. So we'll see where that goes. This is a time when, like these, that we sure like to say had a crystal ball. And this surge in the stock price of SpaceX, if for only briefly, made Elon Musk the world's first trillionaire. We've heard of billionaires. We've never really heard of a trillionaire. There are people out there that have several $billion. But I don't know. I looked it up. I wasn't sure how many zeros were behind the one and $1 trillion or not, but I found out there's 12 zeros. So $1 trillion is equal to 1,000 billion. That's some serious moolah. I'd like just a small piece. You know, if I could settle for half of that in cash, I'd be happy. I would be a happy camper. Consider this visual. If you were to lay $1 billion worth of $100 bills, now some of us don't see a $100 bill very often, and when we do, we try to hold on to it for a while. But if you were to take $1 billion worth of $100 bills end to end, you would create a line stretching for almost 1,000 miles. So that would be the same distance between Clovis, New Mexico, and Greater Nashville, Tennessee. Crazy, huh? When you create that kind of visual, it's just like, my jaw just fell down. That's called a jaw-dropping moment. I'm in awe. 1,000 miles if they were taped end to end. $100 bills. Crazy. Speaking of Clovis, New Mexico, not Clovis, California, I am recording live at the Farmers Electric headquarters in Clovis at the Farmers Electric Studios for another episode of Morning Buzz with the Energy Guy. You guys can't wait till I say that, right? You know, if you like the podcast, if you don't mind, we're in several platforms. Again, we're in YouTube. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify podcast, and we're on Apple Podcast. So like us, share us, and subscribe if you don't mind. I just want to know if there's anybody out there listening. I know there's a few people that talk to me about it, but not many. I mean, I could miss a show and not, just be crickets. I wouldn't hear from anybody saying, hey, where's the show? I missed the show. What's going on? Are you okay? You still alive? Those kind of things. I don't know what it is, but, it's Saturday morning, 7 o'clock. And I can hardly stay awake. I had a good night's sleep. But my allergies are really acting up lately, so I took an allergy, half of an allergy, half of a an allergy pill. It's supposed to be a 24-hour pill, but I thought I'd take, I can break them in half and take one and see how I feel. And they say don't get behind those things. If you get behind on maintenance for allergies, you are going to start feeling them, and then you're in a rut for 3 or 4 days before you can kind of get ahead of it again. Like maybe that's where I am, but man, I can barely stay awake. So I do have a large Coke Zero from Sonic. So there's a plug for Sonic. So, and I'm kind of parched, so I'm going to take a few drinks in between words. So here I go. Okay. It is 6 minutes after. This is the time of year I got to thinking, what am I going to do the show on? Because it seems like at some point, we're 44 episodes in at 30 minutes apiece. That's 22 hours of material I've done over the last 44 weeks. 22 hours. And that it seems like you cover everything in 22 hours, but no, there's still more to talk about. And I find that I do repeat some things, but that's how we learn, through repetition. That's how we learn, through repetition. So you just learn something new. But I got to thinking about what would be a good subject matter for today. So I did a little research on preparing for spring thunderstorms. We've had a few already. But these are just practical things, not necessarily related to electricity. Some of them may be. And we're going to also talk about portable generators versus standby whole home generators. We'll talk about those a little bit. We'll talk about advantages and disadvantages of both. But yeah, these thunderstorms in eastern New Mexico, the high plains, get a little crazy sometimes. They got more bark than bite, though, most of the time. Loud crashing thunder, You think it's raining a gully washer out there, and you go out and dry as a bone. So, but here about less than 2 weeks ago, we had some pretty good rains. I guess it's just been about a week ago. We had pretty good rains back to back. I think over 3 or 4 days, we had 3 inches, at least in the Clovis area. I don't know what kind of rain you guys have been experiencing, but let me know. Send me a message. If you got a question for the show, send me a question, because I do struggle on material. I'm like, what can I talk about? If any of you listeners would send me a Facebook message, a PM, DM, whatever you want to call them, private message, me through Messenger on our Facebook page, Morning Buzz with the Energy Guy, and I will likely use whatever question you may send me. And I'd like to give you credit, so make sure you're not sending an anonymous or anything like that. But preparing for spring thunderstorms on the high plains of eastern New Mexico. Here's some things you want to do before the storm season. Even though we're kind of in the middle of the season right now, you can still do some of these on nicer days. Inspect and repair loose roofing, shingles, flashing, and siding that could be damaged by strong winds. Strong winds, we know all about those. Trim dead or overhanging tree limbs near the house, vehicles, power lines, and outbuildings. Now, let me clarify about power lines. We don't really want you trimming trees around power lines. You do have an obligation from your meter to your home. On the secondary side, the lower voltage, what we call usable voltage, those things up to 240 volts. But I would still use a professional or someone really that knows what they're doing. But a bonded professional is typically the best person or persons to use. Now, we don't ever want you trimming trees around our primary line, our high voltage, 14,400 volts. You don't need to be anywhere near those. So if you see trees growing up into what we call high voltage overhead power lines, give us a call, and we'll make that determination. We'll roll a truck and say, oh, well, that's, secondary voltage, it's lower voltage, but it's on our side, so we'll go ahead and trim it. trim that tree, or we'll get there and say, "Wow, thank you for calling because this is very dangerous voltage. That if you would have gotten into it, you would have likely been severely burned or killed." So, yeah, when in doubt, give us a call. But please stay away from everything away from high voltage lines. Clean gutters and downspouts to help manage heavy rainfall and reduce water intrusion. Water control's huge. I've got a basement, and we put in geothermal, so we had some trenching done. And let me tell you that water will find the lowest spot. It's kind of like electricity, using the path of least resistance. That's what water does too. It finds the path of least resistance and usually ends up ponding in a lower levels of the ground. And then it seeped through and ended up in our, a little bit of it in our basement until we finally, dedicated a couple of weekends to water control. Check that doors, windows, and garage doors seal properly and are in good condition. Secure outdoor furniture, grills, trampolines. Trampolines are notorious to being blown into our power lines and can be very dangerous. But anyway, you want to secure these items that can become airborne in high winds. Review homeowners' insurance coverage, including hail and wind damage provisions. Photograph property and valuables for insurance documentation. That's important. I was watching the news yesterday, the Weather Channel, and I forget where it was, but it was probably in the middle of the United States, maybe. I think it was up in Indiana, maybe the upper Midwest, and there was a huge amount of tornadoes that ripped through a couple of smaller towns and just devastated these homes. And they were showing some footage of this man that was half buried in rubble, and he was alive, thankfully, and they dug him out, and he seemed to be okay. But it's wicked, some of what Mother Nature can throw at you. Assemble an emergency kit, and here's some things to put in it: flashlights and extra batteries, battery-powered weather radio. You can still find those at your big box stores or Amazon. First aid supplies. Bottled water, non-perishable food. This is huge. Prescription medicines and a list of those medicines. Phone charging equipment, very important. Sign up for local weather alerts and monitor forecasts during severe weather periods. Now, this is things to think about when the thunderstorms are in the forecast. Move vehicles into a garage or covered shelter if hail is possible. And hail has become part of almost every one of our spring storms we've had. Somebody's getting hail within our service area. And it seems like it's just getting worse. I don't remember this much hail when I was a kid. But I was probably focused on something else, though. I'm focused on hail now because I own things. I have assets that are going to get damaged. My roof, my cars. I didn't have that as a kid. Charge phones, laptops, power banks, and rechargeable flashlights. Set refrigerators and freezers to colder settings to help preserve food if you have power outages. And then if you do, then leave those closed. Don't open those up. Only open the refrigerator or freezer if absolutely necessary. Otherwise, leaving them shut so that your perishables won't perish. Fill vehicle fuel tanks in case travel becomes necessary and after the storm. And that's something we do here at Farmers Electric. All service trucks and our riggers and our bucket trucks. If we have a big storm in the forecast, we make sure and top those fuel levels off before the inclement weather hits. Unplug sensitive electronics or connect them to surge protection devices. That's huge. Identify the safest interior room in the home, away from the windows. And for some of you, that may be basements. That is your best option. Okay, now we're going to go into during the thunderstorm. Here's some things to consider. Stay indoors and away from windows. I know you're curious, and that, I'm the epitome of, a curious person, because I will be at my house and I hear the civil defense alarms and I know we're under a tornado watch, what's the first thing I do? Run outside and look up. Where is it? Is it close? Is it going to hit our house? Is it going to hit someone else's house? You know, instead of staying put and sheltering in place or going down to the basement. So stay indoors and away from windows. Avoid using corded electrical equipment during lightning activity. Postpone showers, baths, and other activities involving plumbing if lightning is nearby. Not all homes are properly grounded, so that's why you really want to postpone the showers and baths, any kind of water activity. Monitor weather alerts for severe thunderstorm, flash flood, or tornado warnings. Be prepared to move to a shelter area if conditions worsen. Now, we do have a life list, a life registry, and that's for people that are on life-saving equipment like oxygen and those kind of things. Now, we can't get your power on any sooner because everyone's in line, and you've got to wait till that segment of the line is energized. We can't go out of our ways, but typically what we can do is if we've got a planned outage or an outage we've taken due to severe weather or something like that, it looks like it's going to be perhaps several hours before we can get the power restored, we will use that list and reach out to those folks and say, hey, look, you need to find an alternative situation. You need to go into town to a friend's house, to a church, someone that's got electricity, take your nebulizer with you, to a hotel room, whatever the case may be. But, you know, it could, if we have several poles down and they're vital in the chain of electric current, we will tell you, hey, it's going to be at least 6-7 hours before we get, you know, these 15 poles back up in the air and get power restored. So, but don't panic. You know, you can always call us and we can give you that information as accurately as we can. Let's see. After the storm, watch for down power lines and report them to Farmers Electric or whatever utility you may be on. Yeah, I know a lot of people listen to this aren't necessarily Farmers Electric members. So call your utility that you're on. If it's Xcel Energy, call them. If it's PNM, Public Service Company of New Mexico, call them. If it's Texas Electric Cooperatives, call them. You know, whoever it may be. Inspect the property for roof, siding, fence, and vehicle damage. You're going to have to start taking pictures and documenting things for insurance purposes, okay? But before you start cleaning up, make sure you document those things and photograph those things because those will come in real handy when you make that claim with your insurance company. Avoid entering flooded areas or driving through flooded roadways. Check refrigerated food safety if power was lost for an extended period. Okay, you don't want your freezer. You want to make sure and check it because it'll stay cold for a long time if you don't open it. So if you've got a deep freeze in your garage and you've got, half a beef in there, obviously you don't want that to ruin. And this may be a good time to talk a little bit about standby generators. So that might be, if you're out of power, an opportunity to use a standby generator just to keep that half a beef from ruining, depending how long the power is going to be off. But if you've been through a tornado or something like that where it's taken out, several hundred feet of line or miles of line and looks like it's going to be a week or two before power is restored, that's when you really want to concentrate on trying to keep those things frozen. And we're going to talk about standby generating and generation, whole home generation a little later, but it's 19 after the hour, so we're going to continue on. Using a portable generator and taking some notes. I wasn't sure I was that close. During spring power outages, safe placement. This is important. Operate the generator outdoors only. Okay, it's a combustion motor, so it has carbon monoxide that it gives off. Operate the generator outdoors only. Place it at least 20 feet from doors, windows, and vents whenever possible. You don't want it so close that the dangerous fumes can actually come into your home through a vent or through a door or window or garage door. Direct exhaust away from the home and neighboring buildings. Never operate a generator in a garage, shed, basement, crawl space, or enclosed porch. Carbon monoxide protection. This is what I was talking about. Install working carbon monoxide alarms on every level of the home because sometimes carbon monoxide can find its way from your generator outside into your home. And I mentioned that earlier about doors, windows, and vents. Test alarms regularly and replace batteries as needed. Shut down the generator immediately if a carbon monoxide alarm activates. Remember, carbon monoxide is a silent killer, and it's very deadly, and it's odorless killer, I guess I should have said. You can't smell it. And you can be overcome before, and fall victim to it, So that's why, having these alarms in place is so important. They're going to sense that dangerous level, and they're going to let you know audibly that you have issues. So shut down the generator immediately if carbon monoxide alarm activates. Electrical connection. Plug appliances directly into the generator using properly rated extension cords. Now they're not going to take your whole home, so you're going to run this appliance for a while, like deep freeze, then you're going to run your refrigerator for a while, then you may run, a small window air conditioner for a while or a evaporative cooler for a while. But you can't run them all at the same time. You can get some larger, say a 5,000 or a 7,500 watt generator, but it's best just to keep the load, don't max out the load on those because they will trip an internal breaker. If powering household circuits, use a professionally installed transfer switch or interlock system. That's important that we don't get feedback on our line to our linemen that believe that the power line is dead. You can actually push power, if you're not careful, back through our transformer, which will then become a step-up transformer and push it up to dangerous levels for our linemen working on the line. So we don't want that. So make sure if you were powering household circuits, use a professionally installed transfer switch. And those are put in by licensed electricians. 23 after the hour. We need to speed it up. We're not going to have time for this day in history. That's okay. We've got this. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Let's see. Never plug a generator into a wall outlet. And this is what I was talking about, backfeeding. So it's similar to if you were powering household circuits, which can endanger utility workers and damage equipment. Fuel management. Store fuel in approved containers away from living spaces. Keep extra fuel on hand before severe weather arrives. Turn off the generator and allow it to cool before refueling. Very important. Follow manufacturer recommendations for fuel stabilizations and storage. And this is earlier I talked about prioritizing loads a little bit. Common priorities during spring outages include refrigerators and freezers, a well pump if applicable, because you want to have water, right? A furnace blower or a heating system controls. Now that's in the wintertime. And then of course you could power an evaporative cooler, small window unit, air conditioning. Medical equipment, very important. You could, if you had a nebulizer, you could run it off that generator I was talking about. Internet and communication devices, very important if you want to stay, up to date on the latest news. And essential lighting. Lighting doesn't take a lot of load, so you could probably run some lighting, a lamp or two, off of a multiple plug outlet strip. I couldn't think of the word. Operation tips. Start the generator before connecting major loads. Add loads gradually. Monitor fuel levels and oil condition. Exercise the generator periodically during the year so it remains reliable. A lot of people have generators, but they don't exercise them. So when they need them, they don't work, and they're frustrated. And they're like, why? And it's because the fuel's old, or, whatever. It's empty. Who knows? Portable generator versus full standby generator. And that, I'm talking, when I say full, that's whole home. Portable generator advantages: lower initial cost, can be moved and used in multiple locations, suitable for occasional outages, no permanent installation. Permanent installation is required, no permit either. Disadvantages: must be manually started and connected. It's like a lawnmower engine, basically. It requires fuel management during extended outages. You're going to have extra fuel. And again, make sure you shut that generator off and let it cool before you start pouring gasoline over it. Gasoline is highly volatile fuel. Higher risk of user error if safety procedures are not followed, and they are typically a louder operation. They're best for homeowners who experience infrequent outages. That would be Farmers Electric folks. Budget-conscious household, again, Farmers Electric members. Backup power for essential appliances only. Now, full or whole home standby generator advantages: they start automatically when utility power fails. They are permanently connected to the home's electrical system. They can power most or all of the home. Now, you've seen some of these, like Generac. That's one that comes to mind. You can buy those through your electrician. They could order one for you. Typically, it's a little higher cost, but those people, and the money's local, so try to keep it local. They're not going to be a lot higher than the big box store, but they're going to be the ones that install it, and they're going to back it up. They're going to back up the factory warranty through, like, say, Generac, for instance, and anything they may have wired improperly or whatever, they're going to back it up 100%. So use these local folks, and get some quotes. Call your favorite electrician and say, hey, I'm thinking about a whole home generator. Can you help me with that? Can I get a quote on a 20 kW Generac, natural gas or propane, fueled? And they are typically fueled by natural gas or large propane supply. And so natural gas is nice because it's always there. Propane, you've only got as much, you've got a finite amount because it's only as much as that's in your tank. And it could take 2, 3, 4 days, particularly if there's a huge outage like a tornado or straight line winds that take down a lot of infrastructure or ice during the wintertime. But it could be 2, 3, or 4 days before a local propane company can bring you more supply. So make sure that's on hand before the storm season. Whole home generators are greater convenience during overnight or unattended outages. That's nice. So if you guys are traveling, you can have peace of mind that the generator is going to fire up while you're away, and when it senses no voltage, and it will turn off when it senses voltage. So maybe it could run if it's gas operated, for 6 hours, maybe easily run that on a large propane tank as well. And then you hear that the power's back on, and you could, I think there's probably through Generac or some of those better name brands of whole home generators, there's probably apps that go with those, and you can check your fuel level, number of things like that. You can check if it's actually operating or not, and at what voltage. I mean, pretty cool stuff. Disadvantages: they are significantly higher purchase and installation cost. Unless you just absolutely have horrible outages and long restoration time, which really, we're getting a little more spoiled. This generation is a little more spoiled than last. The last was a little more spoiled than one before. And we understand that, we live in a time where electronics and instantaneous messages are important. And some people, their jobs require that, and perhaps they're working from home. So we understand your needs may be greater than your neighbors. So whatever the case may be, do your homework before you go out and make this kind of purchase, because it can be significant. Does require professional installation and permitting, and is permanent for the most part. Ongoing maintenance costs. Remember, you got to exercise those and make sure everything's running properly. And there could be ongoing maintenance cost. You could actually hire your electrician to come and test it. Of course, that's going to cost you, probably at least a service call, whatever that rate is, plus whatever time. It's probably going to likely be an hour of their time. So you're probably looking at $150, $200 for them to come out and check that. But it may be worth it for some. They are best for areas with frequent or prolonged outages, and we talked about that. Homes with medical equipment needs, that's huge. Households that require uninterruptible heating, cooling, and well water service. Well, I would say that most of us like those things, but we can live without them for a while anyway. Owners seeking automatic whole home backup power. That's nice. And again, it's convenience, particularly for traveling, and it gives you peace of mind. It's kind of like insurance. Like, oh, I know I'm looking at my app right now. My Generac generator just fired up, and I just got a notification from Farmers Electric that we're out of power, and looks like I've got 10 kW load on right now, so that means my 2 air conditioning units are running. Okay, should have turned those things down, or actually the thermostat up or the unit off before you left. But if you forgot, there's a lot of apps for that too. If you've got a smart thermostat, look into those. We actually have a rebate for smart thermostats at $75, but we won't rebate more than what it costs you. So if you get one on sale somewhere down at Ace Hardware or Do It Center or one of the big box stores for $50, and we're only going to rebate $50. We're going to ask you to provide a receipt for that, but a maximum rebate's $75. So, High Plains of Eastern New Mexico considerations. I'm going to go over a few things real quickly, and then we'll have to call it a day. We're 32 minutes after the hour. Spring storms often bring a combination of damaging winds, large hail, frequent lightning, blowing dust, and occasional tornadoes. Luckily, we don't see many of those tornadoes, knock on wood. Rural properties with wells should evaluate backup power needs for water pumps. Homes relying on electric heating and cooling controls should identify those electrical requirements before selecting a generator. Because outages can occur alongside high winds and dust, store generators. This is for the standby or not standby, the portable generators, in a protected location and perform frequent maintenance before storm season begins. Okay, that was a list I put together, and I hope it was helpful for you. We went through it pretty quickly, and if you weren't writing any of this down, you may have to listen to the show twice. What a bummer. Good grief. You know what? Speed it up. Turn this 30-minute program into a 15-minute program just by increasing your playback time. You can do that under settings on any of these platforms I'm talking about: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. And remember to like us, share us, and subscribe. So that's it for this episode 44 of, wait for it, Morning Buzz with the Energy Guys. Gotcha. See you next time.